I've been talking to this girl Maya for maybe 3 weeks, before I started noticing things that didn't sit right with me. We met through a mutual friend at a cookout and exchanged numbers. Nothing unusual about that. She was funny, easy to talk to, and I figured it was worth seeing where things went. For the first week or two, everything was pretty normal. Then one afternoon, I mentioned offhand that I was heading to the gym, and about 40 minutes later I got a text saying, "You look tired walking in. Everything okay?" I didn't think much of it at the time. The gym was maybe a 10-minute drive from my apartment. I never told her which one I went to. I chalked it up to coincidence, figured maybe she went to the same place and happened to be there. I didn't bring it up. That was probably my first mistake. Things moved pretty fast after that, which looking back was a pattern I kept missing. She'd reference things I'd done or places I'd been without me ever mentioning them. I'd post nothing on social media, tell her nothing, and she'd say something like, "How was that coffee place on Harmon?" Or, "Did the traffic on 5th bother you this morning?" Each time there was a reasonable explanation I could reach for. She could have driven past. Someone could have mentioned it. I kept reaching. About a month in, I ended things. It wasn't dramatic. We hadn't even officially called it dating, so there wasn't much to end. I just told her I thought we were better as friends. She took it fine on the surface. Too fine, maybe. She just said okay, and that was it. No argument, no follow-up. I remember thinking it went surprisingly smooth. The text started 3 days later. Not threatening, not unhinged, just steady. 1 in the morning, 1 around noon, 1 before bed. Always something ordinary. Hope your day's going well. Did you eat? Saw something that made me think of you. I responded once or twice out of guilt, which I now know was the wrong move. When I stopped responding entirely, the frequency didn't change. It just continued at the same pace, like a clock ticking in another room. That's the part that got to me. There was no escalation, no reaction to my silence. It was like she didn't need a response, like she wasn't waiting for one. About 2 weeks into the silence, I started sleeping with my blinds fully closed. I couldn't explain it rationally. My apartment was on the 2nd floor and faced a quiet side street. There was no reason to feel watched, but somewhere around 1 in the morning, I'd get this feeling like the air in the room had shifted, and I'd lie there staring at the ceiling until it passed. I told myself it was stress. I was in my last semester. Work was picking up. It made sense to be on edge. Then one night, I woke up about 2 a.m. to a sound I couldn't place at first. It was low, rhythmic, almost like breathing but not quite. I sat up and just listened. It stopped. I waited a few minutes, didn't hear it again, and went back to sleep. In the morning, I found a small mark on the outside of my window ledge. It looked like something had been resting against it. A hand maybe, or a forearm. The paint was slightly scraped, like whatever it was had been there long enough to leave something behind. I told myself it could have been anything. The last time I saw her was a Tuesday. I'd gotten home late from a shift, but instead of cutting through the front like I normally would, I came in through the back entrance. There was a construction blocking the usual route, so I looped around and came up the rear stairwell. It was nothing deliberate, just a shortcut that happened to work that night. When I got to my room, I set my bag down, and out of habit, drifted toward the window that faces the front parking lot. There was a car I didn't recognize parked directly across from the building's entrance. Engine off, no lights, just sitting there in a spot that's usually empty because the drain next to it floods when it rains. Nobody parks there. I stood back from the glass so I wouldn't be visible, and just watched. After a few minutes, the driver's door opened. It was Maya. She didn't look up at the building, didn't look around. She walked to the back of her car with this calm, deliberate kind of movement, the way someone moves when they've already made a decision. She opened the trunk, and then just stood there with her back to me. Not rummaging, not shifting things around, just standing, still, for what felt like a long time. Then she reached in and lifted something out. It was long, maybe 3.5 feet, wrapped completely in a bag, the kind with a zipper running the full length. She held it with both hands, one near each end, like she was being careful with it. She closed the trunk with her elbow and then sat down in the back of the car, the bag across her lap, and just waited. She was facing the front entrance of my building. I didn't move. I don't think I breathed properly for the next several minutes. I stood back in the dark of my room and watched her sit there, completely still, the bag resting across her legs, eyes on the door I would have walked through if I hadn't come in from the back that night. After maybe 20 minutes, she stood up, put the bag in the trunk, got in the car, and drove away. I've thought about those 20 minutes every day since. I've thought about what was in that bag, the shape of it, the length, the way she handled it with 2 hands and kept it level, the way she sat facing that entrance like she was expecting someone to walk out, like she was timing something. The text stopped the following morning. No final message, no explanation, just gone. And that's the thing I keep coming back to, the part I genuinely cannot square. She stopped the exact morning after she drove away with whatever was in that bag. Not gradually, not with a final angry message, just a full stop, like a switch flipping. The only reason I can think of for someone to stop like that, after weeks of clockwork contact, is that something changed. Either what she was planning didn't happen the way she intended, or she realized something that night that made her reconsider. I don't know if that's why I'm still here. I don't know if that's too dramatic a conclusion to draw from a woman sitting on her car with a bag, but I know what I saw, and I know the shape of that bag, and I know she was waiting for someone who she thought hadn't come home yet. I moved out 6 weeks later. I didn't tell anyone the real reason. I still don't take the front entrance at night. I don't know if that's paranoia or just sense at this point. Probably some of both. I just know I'm glad I took the shortcut.